Hey, welcome to today's show. This is our second episode. We're really excited. And today we're going to be talking about the different ways to start a business. And 1 is start your own. 2, you can buy an existing. 3, open a franchise. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Karen. I'm a CPA, entrepreneur with big ideas, and I'm the mom.
I'm Cadie. I'm a payroll specialist, business owner, and detail-oriented person that makes things happen. And I'm the daughter. Welcome to Cheers to Business.
Cadie, you currently own a franchise. What do you see as the pros and cons in your experience?
Well, I think the first thing I want to touch on is what a franchise is. I think there's a big misconception. Franchises are independently owned and operated businesses.
So you own your own company, basically.
Yes, you own your own company. You have an agreement with a brand that may be national, but as far as in your local district, you're making the decisions, you're doing the staffing. It's really your own entity.
A lot of people are under the misconception that they tell you everything to do.
Well, I mean, some brands have more flexibility, others are more strict, and I think that's an important thing to look into when you are going into the franchise. You know, talk to other owners who currently are doing business with that brand, people who've owned one maybe in the past, and also the agreement that you're signing up with that franchise.
Yeah. For example, in the CPA firm, it was me and my team, and so we knew our own rules. I think I found in the CPA firm, in that structure, CPAs don't make money doing payrolls. Well, when you have over 120 of them, I knew I could open up a payroll company, but I didn't want to reinvent the wheel.
I was doing those payrolls. Thank you very much.
Yes, you were. You did the majority of those payrolls and did them very well, by the way.
But not efficiently, and that's
correct.
That's the key is I have this much work to do. How can I do it as fast as possible and as accurate as possible? And that's where a franchise really steps in because they know how to do it.
They've already tested everything. And I think, we researched, both of us went and, we're researching, trying to see where the perfect platform was. And that's where Payroll Vault came in. And you've taken it and just run like a rock star. Now, tell about the beginning, though, when we were thinking about doing this. What do you remember? What comes to mind the foremost of what our concerns were or why yes go besides being the efficiencies?
I think one of the most important things kind of when you're getting started is the brand. When people create their own brand, their own logo, the name, the colors, you get very emotionally attached to that. And that's one thing almost when you step into a franchise is you have to learn to connect with that brand because it's not something that you necessarily invented or created.
But it's been tested. So that's a plus.
Well, I mean, from getting everything started, by getting a franchise, they give you the playbook. You're not writing the playbook, and you have to look inside yourself and know whether or not you're the type of person who can follow a playbook, or do you need to be the one inventing it and, maybe running into brick walls.
And I think that is the personality type. However, you got to be, depending on what you want to do, I think you've got to be able to step back, talk to the right people, do the research to see which model. I've done both. That's because for this situation, that worked, and for this situation, the other worked.
And it's not a guarantee. I mean, just because the franchise company is telling you what to do, are you listening to them? Are you listening to other franchise owners? It's important. I think that there's a middle ground, especially if the franchise gives you the flexibility. You've got to really play with what works in your market.
I think you got to have the personality, too, to accept that your way is not always best.
Amen.
We always go in, and I'm so smart. I mean, I have the T-shirt. It says,
I'll be smarter if you're less stupid or something.
No, I'd be nicer if you were smarter, but that wasn't the one I was talking about.
Okay, sorry. There's so many.
I was talking the one I wore at conference last week.
While you were doing your presentation.
Yeah, I wore it on purpose. It's not that I'm bossy. It's that I have better ideas. And I was making a statement. I actually had a suit to wear to that, but that one was more appropriate at a franchise conference where I was actually speaking at, and she was there as the owner. So
back on track.
Okay, back on track. We need the bell. So franchises. You'd be amazed at what places are franchises and what aren't. Cadie, what's some of the ones you've learned over the past 3 years?
Well, I mean, McDonald's is a franchise.
Nukes.
Whataburger.
AT&T stores.
Janney King.
Maids.
Huntington Learning Centers. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, you'd be amazed at what a franchise is that you don't think they are. But what that means is that there's someone here, possibly local, more times than not, that your neighbor could own his own company, but because the shingle says a corporate name, they think it's not theirs, and that's not true. And I think that's what you were referencing earlier.
Yes, is they are their own businesses. I think a lot of times people, for example, Starbucks, they're corporate owned. Yes, they may have a local manager, however, they're not independently owned. They all fall under their own umbrella.
Right. And when it's not corporate, you don't necessarily have the national advertising and they make their people go out and be in the community. It's your choices whether how successful you want your business to be.
And I think an important thing kind of off to the side, but still along the franchise is, let's say you are starting a business completely from scratch. Some people go into the idea of, hey, I'm going to start this business with the intention of franchising it in the future and becoming a franchisor, meaning you created the brand that other people can buy into.
I can think of two here locally that are in the middle of that right now. They are building their brand. They built it where they're about – one has already started and another one is about to start. And they have built that brand. But how much investment does it take, and is somebody willing to do that?
I think that's one of the biggest compliments if someone comes up to your business and asks if there's a franchise opportunity.
Well, I don't know if I shared with you, but, I was actually at the Payroll Vault conference last week as a vendor for our company, Flexible Benefits, Inc., which is benefit packages for employees. And I did the presentation on that company. And when I went back to my booth at the conference, one of the Payroll Vault owners came up to me and said, "Are you planning on franchising that?" I didn't know what to say. For once in my life, I was speechless. And it was because my mind had not gone there. That was my first presentation, and I had the wrong PowerPoint up. So I have no idea what I said while I was up there. In fact, all I remember is you telling me to wrap it up. So, to have that possibility, I think that's in people's minds now. Of course, I think it's more in people's minds that already own or work for a franchise.
If you were interested in franchising your brand, kind of what's the first step to do that?
I think I would actually contact my other franchise owners that I know and our franchisors who we know corporate. I think that, first of all, I would get my ducks in a row with talking with the franchise attorney. I mean, the documents, everything. Look at the document that we have for Payroll Vault, and I've seen other documents. They're an inch and a half thick with legalese. So, presented with something like that, what did we do when we got that thing, Cadie?
Oh, we hired an attorney.
Exactly.
Well, I read it, but we also got an attorney.
And I trust you. So that worked all in by itself. But I think, what are the rules and stipulations? There's got to be federal guidance, things that, we may not necessarily know. But that, again, throws in a third aspect of it. 1, starting from scratch. 2, buying a franchise. Or 3, building a brand to be a franchisor. Because they're all totally different things.
Absolutely. So if someone walked up to you, just real quick, 2 pros and 2 cons of owning a franchise.
I think one of the pros is definitely not reinventing the wheel. 2, I think one of the pros is having just the acceptance of perception.
Ooh,
I know.
I like that term.
Thank you. To being known. Now, for Payroll Vault, nobody here knew it. It's more all out in Colorado and out west. There's quite a few in California, a lot in Colorado. So we had to push that brand from scratch. So that was a little different. But it's definitely part of the package. As far as con, yes, you are answerable to someone else. I think that you have to choose whether you consider royalties. And what happens is that the price you pay for not reinventing the wheel is you pay them a percentage of sales. And so every month on your sales, you have to pay them. I consider that an investment. However, I could see where that would turn into a con at some point if you feel like you're doing all the work. Cadie, your feelings on that? It's tough.
I definitely agree with all of those. Pros, I like the community aspect. If, we run into a situation that we've never dealt with before, I'm able to reach out to X amount of people and, hey, have you gone through this? Have you dealt with this? And kind of we're able to bounce off those ideas of people who are not only in the same industry, but they understand our model and our values and how we operate. Another pro is definitely of to go further into not reinventing the wheel. The brand is developed, meaning not just the logo, but what that brand...
Efficiencies of process?
Yes. Well, even just the website, everything like that, best practices. Here's what we look for when hiring. Here's how to operate the software. I mean, everything you could imagine.
Even forms. Can you imagine all the forms I had to come up with when I started from scratch? I had to create in a Word program versus they handed everything to you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, normally franchises offer a training period. So you go to where the headquarters is and they come to you and they make sure that everything is good to go. I mean, that peace of mind, it's invaluable.
Now, you pay for that. You have most of them, all that I've seen, have an upfront franchise fee.
Yes.
And that is dependent on, I think, the popularity, economics, supply and demand.
And the equipment as well. It's going to be a
absolutely.
lot. Planet Fitness is another franchise. And I mean, the cost to get a Planet Fitness simply because of the gym equipment, it's astronomical.
And that brings with, one of our, we hope you take away with today listening to us is, what capital do I have to have?
And most brands, if you go to their website and you'll see franchise opportunities, it will tell you what that initial estimate buy-in cost is.
They give you the level of liquidity before they'll even talk to you. That means
What's
liquidity?
Go.
All right. Assets that you can make available very fast. Okay.
Knowledge for the day.
It is, but that's not the book version. I'm sure that's very professional.
We don't want the book version.
Good, because I'm not about the book version. I got flip-flops on right now. So if you were to rely on someone to be able to be financially stable, how much could they come up with today? All right. They want to know how liquid you are, or can you even afford to do this? Next, can you afford to live until this gets up and running, whether it's a McDonald's or a brand you've never heard of? Either way, it takes time, build out, ordering, setting up employees. What other things did you see?
Well, so my question is, let's say that I really like this brand. I think I would be really good at running this business, but, I'm got debt out the wazoo. How does one go about? Is it better to wait until you've established, to have those assets in place, find an investor, go to a bank? How can you start a franchise?
I think that
money-wise.
Yeah, I think the most aggravating answer is it depends. And it depends on, is your neighbor or your uncle an investor, and you can have an investor? Well, they're not going to let you on the ticket. So you're going to run it. It's your work, blood, sweat, and tears, and you don't own it. Well, when you work a deal so that over so many years, and to make sure he or she gets their money back, because it has to be a win-win situation. Another one is hold out, work your butt off, and save up. Get your life in order, get out of debt. And that's said so easily, and it's not that easy. And that's another show.
When getting a franchise started, what kind of price range could someone expect to pay? I know it depends, however, just a general answer, what to expect.
It really goes back to supply and demand again. Usually on general, they like you to be a couple $100,000 liquid. When you get up to where they know you're going to have to be able to afford the outlay for you talking about gyms earlier. If you're going to have a big outlay or build out of a restaurant, or, you have to go by their brand, buy their stuff, the equipment, then it's going to be the liquidity. They're going to want you to have more and be more financially stable because they know what you're going to have to come out of pocket. And they want you to be able to do that.
And some brands require you to be operationally involved in the business. So let's just say you want to take the investor route and you just want to invest in a brand. Some, like Chick-fil-A's, the owners have to be involved in the operations of the business. So that's another thing, too, is how involved you have to be.
Well, and that goes back to what we've been saying the whole time, in that you take a piece of paper and you put pros on one side and cons on the other side, and you do it for each franchise that you're looking at until you find where there's more on the pros than on the cons, and you can stomach and live with the cons.
It should not be a quick decision.
Do not make it a quick decision. No. It's back to long term. First, pay the franchise fee. Eat while you build it. Eat while you grow it, and then slowly it starts to pay off. Because never in my life have I seen a good payoff come in the short term. It's always the long term.
I think people don't see the long term, though. That's a common thing to discuss is overnight success. Well, you didn't see the beginning. The beginning isn't really touched on, or no one brags about not having money for 3 years.
Yeah, I think, 2016 was actually a good year for me that I don't really want to go into right now, but it was a good year. And people would come up, oh my gosh, you're having the year, it's just amazing. And I said, it took me 20 years to get here. It took 20 years of family, and especially family, helping out clients. I mean, I couldn't have built what I have without you. One common thread I can see in all that we've talked about today is people. We talked about it in the first show of how we got here and why we're doing this. And I think that the people around you, the people who have done it, the people who are going to help you are one of the most important things in your life.
So to sum it up, really, Franchise 101, do your research, talk to people.
That's right. And it cannot be a quick decision. It's not about $1 or a quick buck, but it's about having an emotional connection with what you're trying to do with your life, what you're trying to sell, because no one else is going to buy into it unless you're emotionally connected. If you don't believe in it, nobody else is.
Perfect.
Anybody that's listening to us today or thinking about, that sounds intriguing, I'd like to look at what kind of franchise and, so where do you go for the source?
There's a couple different websites to research franchises. There's the Franchise Business Review. There's the International Franchise Association.
Which she won the award last year.
IFA.
Proud mommy moment.
Okay. I don't know. Those two resources are really probably the best to start off with. And then once you kind of get some ideas of brands that you want to work with, go check out those companies directly.
Read between the lines and read the little print. That's where they get you. Y'all, thank you so much for listening and being here with us today. I'm Karen.
I'm Cadie. Please be sure to subscribe to Cheers to Business podcast on iTunes or anywhere else that you get your podcast. Visit our Facebook and be sure to give us a like. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss, shoot us an email from the website, cheerstobusiness.com.
And if you think franchising is right for you,
then cheers to finding the right franchise.